Does PHP suck? Let's talk about it. What's going on, guys? John Alder here from Codemy.com, and in this video, we're going to talk about PHP and whether or not it sucks. Now stop right there. I know you're about to click away because nobody cares about PHP and you don't either, but you should. Maybe. It might just be the most important thing you ever learn. No, probably not. But it is kind of important, and it's worth spending a couple of minutes hearing what I've got to say about it. Now, PHP has been hated for decades. I mean, decades. I've been around a long time, and I can't remember a time when somebody wasn't complaining about PHP being absolutely terrible. But is it? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. So why does everybody hate PHP? The fact of the matter is PHP is incredibly easy to use, and it's very quick to use. There's nothing to install, there's nothing to configure. Every single cheap web hosting account out there has PHP already installed. And if you have a more expensive hosting solution like Heroku or AWS or whatever, it's very easy to get PHP up and running on those as well. If you've got a cheap web hosting account for like $10 a month, and let's face it, unless you've got a website with hundreds of thousands of users, a $10 a month hosting account's probably enough to get you started. If you've got one of those accounts, it has PHP on it. All you have to do is upload a file called index.php or whatever.php, type a little PHP code into there, and it will just work. That's opposed to every other web framework like Django, like Flask, like Ruby on Rails, like Node, where you have to learn two things, the programming language and the web framework. So you have to learn Python and Django. You have to learn Python and Flask. You have to learn Ruby and Ruby on Rails. You have to learn JavaScript and Node, and on and on and on. With PHP, there is no framework to learn. Now, I know there are many PHP frameworks, and yes, you can use one, but I've never used one, and I've literally owned thousands of PHP websites in my life. Never once even touched a framework, because you don't have to. It just works without it. So that makes it incredibly easy to get up and running very quickly for small startups, individuals, people with not a lot of experience or coding skills, and that's fantastic. But it's also the reason why people hate PHP so much, and I'll explain. So there's a story that's been going around for decades. I've heard it at least a dozen times in a dozen different ways, and I'm gonna tell you the story today. So there's a company, they hire an intern named Billy, and Billy's sitting around without much to do because he's an intern and the company doesn't really know what to do with him. So he's just kind of watching. And over the days, he notices that the company has a really weird inventory system. It's mostly just a half dozen to a dozen Excel spreadsheets scattered all over the place. And anytime somebody wants to do anything with inventory, they need to pull up a specific spreadsheet, fill it out, it's a hassle. Then at the end of the month, 2 or 3 people have to compile these spreadsheets and create all these reports. It takes 2 or 3 days every month just to do it, and it's a mess. And Billy thinks, why don't they have a centralized database for this and some little web interface to take care of all this stuff for him? And so he starts to build it. Now, Billy doesn't know what he's doing. He's not really a coder, but he's watched a few PHP videos and he knows enough to be dangerous. So he starts building this thing out. A little database, a little web interface, starts punching all this stuff together, creates a couple of reports where you press a button at the end of the month and it does its stuff internally and spits out the report. It looks pretty good. So he shows it to his boss and his boss is ecstatic. This is great. We've been needing this for years. Thank you so much, Billy. But can you add this, and this report as well? Billy says, no problem. Pulls up his code. His code's 4 or 5 pages. It's not bad. It's kind of messy. It's not really indented correctly because he doesn't know what he's doing. It's all single spaced. It's a little hard to read. There's no comments at all, but Billy can read it because he just wrote it. So he starts to modify it. He starts to add this, and this report. Shows it to the boss. Fantastic. Thank you, Billy. That's great. A couple of months go by and they use this thing and it works fine. It does what it's supposed to do. No problems whatsoever. But then somebody else says, you know what? We really need this and this report. And while you're at it, this other report too. Billy says, no problem, I can do that. He's feeling pretty confident these days. So he starts coding and he adds this, and this report. His code turns from 5 or 6 pages to 9 or 10 pages, but it's fine. He knows what he's doing. He can read it. He can figure it out. No big deal. A couple of months go by and another department hears about it. And they say, hey, can we get in on this action? Why don't you add our stuff in there as well? We could really use this too. Billy says, no problem, starts coding. Their inventory system's a little bit more complicated. There's a few more things involved, but he can figure it out. It's no big deal. But now his code's like 20, 25, maybe 30 pages, and it's getting a lot harder to read, but it's fine because Billy can still read it because he just wrote it. He knows what it is, and it's fine. Another couple of weeks go by. They ask for a few more reports to be added in. He does some more tinkering. All of a sudden, it's 40 or 50 pages of code, and that's fine. It still does everything it's supposed to do. It works fine. Well, Billy realizes he did a pretty good job with this thing, right? His bosses are thrilled. The bosses in the other department are thrilled. Everyone's talking about Billy. It's great. So he puts it on his resume and he shops out his resume. And in like 30 seconds, he gets a half dozen job offers from other companies for double or even triple what he's making as an intern. What does Billy do? Billy takes off. He takes that job making triple what he was making as an intern, and he's over the moon. Company's sad to see him go, but that's what happens these days. People come and go all the time. That's what you do. You build things, you put them on your resume, you get a better job somewhere else for double the money. That's how these things work, right? No big deal. And a year goes by, and they use the thing, and it keeps working, and it's great. And then another year goes by, and then they hear from their manufacturer, "We're updating our inventory codes. Just letting you know." Company freaks out. Uh-oh. Billy's system isn't going to work with all these new codes. We need to update it. Bob, you're our senior programmer. Have at it. Now, Bob knows what he's doing. He's been around the block. He's been a coder for 20 years. He's great. He opens Billy's code and kind of throws up a little bit inside. He cannot read it. He has no idea what it is. There's not a single comment. It's single-spaced, 40 pages. He can't make heads or tails of it. It is a nightmare. Bob shakes his head and goes, "Fucking PHP." Now, does PHP suck? Bob thinks so, and all the other real programmers out there think so, because this is what happens to them. They get code that somebody that doesn't really know what they're doing created. And the code works, but when you have to maintain it or change it years later, it becomes quite a hassle. And that is like, I think 98% of the reason why people hate PHP. It's because it's so easy. It allows people with not a lot of experience, not a lot of knowledge, to build stuff, which is great. We love that. But also, there's a flip side to that when it comes to maintaining that legacy code over years when that person has moved on to the next job, as is always the case, right? So if anybody ever asks Bob what he thinks of PHP, he's going to tell him exactly what he thinks, which is that it sucks. But it's just a tool, like a hammer. If you hit somebody over the head with a hammer, you're an idiot. It's not the hammer's fault. And it's the same with PHP. It's just a tool like any other. Now, there is no doubt Python is a better programming language. Ruby is a better programming language. Even JavaScript is probably a better programming language. But PHP is still decent. It's still okay. And it's so easy, has such a low barrier for entry that it's great for all kinds of different things. Startups that don't have a lot of money to hire lots of engineers. If you've got an idea and you want to crank something out with PHP over a weekend, you can shop that around to venture capitalists and use it to raise money to then hire people and build your real app, right? It's great for that. It's great for individuals who maybe aren't working with a team and never will. If you just want to build a website, you want to do it quick and easy, bang, PHP is great. You can do a lot of stuff very quickly and very easily with it. Like I said, it's very cheap to host. Any cheap web hosting account will have PHP already installed and ready to go. Nothing to install, nothing to configure, nothing to worry about. It just works. So if you've been on the fence for PHP, give it another chance. It has its place. I've used PHP for years. At one time, I owned a network of over 6,000 websites, all built with PHP, serving up literally hundreds of millions of pages, and they all worked without a hitch for years. And I made a lot of money with those websites, so it's like anything, the right tool for the job always. So don't just discount PHP because you heard somebody say that it sucks. It's probably Bob because he's bitter and angry over having to spend 3 months unraveling Billy's horrible code, and he is never going to stop talking about that and never going to stop hating PHP. That doesn't mean PHP is horrible. So over at Codemy.com, I have a course on PHP. I'll give it to you today for free. There'll be a link in the description below with a coupon code so you can sign up. No strings attached. Log in, watch it. It's 20 or 30 videos, not a lot because it doesn't take a lot to learn PHP. Give it a try. Check out the videos if you're interested. It's my gift to the gods of PHP for inventing something that's so easy for so many people to use. And I really think you should give it a try and make up your own mind. So that's all for this video. If you'd like to, be sure to smash the like button below, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm. And check out Codemy.com where you can use coupon code YouTube1 to get $30 off memberships. It pays just $49 to access all my courses, over 47 courses, including PHP, hundreds of videos, and the PDFs of all my best-selling coding books. Join over 150,000 students learning to code just like you. My name is John Elder from Codemy.com, and I'll see you in the next video. And PHP isn't that bad.